A pilot trip with children is a fundamentally different undertaking than a pilot trip for adults alone. Every aspect of your planning must account for their needs, their limits, and their perspectives, which are not merely smaller versions of adult concerns, but entirely different categories of experience. Children cannot walk all day without rest. They cannot sit through meeting after meeting without becoming restless. They cannot engage with abstract questions about community character and lifestyle fit the way adults can. At the same time, children often notice things that adults overlook, feel things that adults have learned to suppress, and express truths that adults have learned to hide. A pilot trip with children, planned thoughtfully, can provide insights that an adult's only trip would miss. What follows is a guide to planning and executing a family pilot trip that serves both the children's needs and the family's decision-making process. Begin by acknowledging what the pilot trip can and cannot accomplish with children involved. If your children are old enough to understand what Aliyah means and to have opinions about it, they deserve to be part of the exploration and to have their concerns heard. But they cannot be expected to bear the same investigative burden as adults. They need downtime, playtime, and experiences that are simply fun rather than purposeful. Build this into your itinerary from the start, rather than hoping to squeeze it in around more serious activities. For every day of intensive exploration, plan a half-day or full day that prioritizes the children's experience. A beach afternoon, a visit to a zoo or museum, a meal at a restaurant they choose. These breaks are not wasted time, but essential investments in your children's capacity to engage positively with the rest of the trip. School visits deserve particular care when children are involved. The question of whether to bring children to school tours is debated among experienced pilot trip planners, with reasonable people falling on different sides. Bringing children allows them to see the physical spaces, meet potential teachers, and perhaps interact with students who could become their classmates. It can reduce anxiety about the unknown and build excitement about the possibility of attending. But school visits can also be overwhelming or intimidating for children, particularly if language barriers make communication difficult or if the school environment feels foreign and unwelcoming. Consider your children's temperaments and your sense of what would help versus harm their emotional preparation for Aliyah. For some families, bringing children to schools is clearly right. For others, a preliminary adults-only tour followed by a more casual visit with children makes more sense. There is no universal answer, only the answer that fits your particular children. Housing exploration with children requires adjusting your pace and your priorities. You cannot tour 8 apartments in a day with young children in tow, and attempting to do so will result in cranky kids, frazzled parents, and no meaningful impressions of any of the properties. Limit apartment visits to 2 or 3 per day, and choose properties that are already on your short list rather than trying to see everything available. Bring snacks and entertainment for waiting periods between appointments or during adult conversations with landlords and agents. When viewing properties, let children explore the spaces at their own pace rather than herding them from room to room. Ask children what they think of each apartment after you leave, and take their impressions seriously even when their criteria seem trivial to adult minds. A child's sense that a bedroom is too dark or that there is no good place to play may reflect real qualities of the space that would affect their daily experience. Build in experiences that allow children to interact with Israeli children in unstructured ways. Playgrounds are ideal for this purpose, as children tend to play together regardless of language barriers, and observing these interactions tells you something about the social environment your children would enter. If you have contacts in neighborhoods you are considering, ask whether their children might be available for a playdate with yours. These arranged encounters can feel awkward, but they often produce valuable information about how welcoming local children are to newcomers, and how your children respond to the experience of being the outsiders. Summer camps and youth programs sometimes accept short-term visitors, and enrolling your children for even a few days can provide intensive exposure to Israeli peer culture that no amount of adult planning can replicate. Pay attention to how your children respond to different neighborhoods and situations, and take those responses seriously as data. Children often lack the language to articulate why they feel comfortable or uncomfortable in a particular environment, but their behavior and mood will tell you what they cannot say in words. A child who is animated and curious in one neighborhood, but withdrawn and clingy in another, is giving you important information about their gut response to each place. This does not mean that children's preferences should determine your decision, as children cannot evaluate the factors that adults must weigh. But children will be living the reality of your choice every day, and their intuitions deserve a place in your deliberations. If you have children of significantly different ages, you face the additional challenge of serving multiple developmental needs simultaneously. A teenager's concerns about social life and academic opportunity are different from a first grader's need for playgrounds and friends. You may need to divide your pilot trip, with one parent focusing on high school exploration, while the other takes younger children to age-appropriate activities, then swapping roles. Older teenagers might participate in adult activities like real estate tours and community meetings, contributing their observations and questions to the family's data gathering. Younger children need protection from the intensity that older family members can handle. There is no formula for balancing these needs, only the ongoing negotiation that is the reality of every family with children at different stages. Consider the timing of your pilot trip in relation to your children's lives. School vacation periods offer the obvious advantage of not missing classes, but they also mean that Israeli schools may be closed for your visits, and that the families you meet may be traveling themselves. During the school year, you can observe schools in operation and meet families in their normal routines, but you must weigh this against the disruption to your children's education and social lives at home. The week before major holidays or the first weeks of a new school year may find communities in transition, with less representative daily routines than other times. There is no perfect timing, only trade-offs that you must evaluate in light of your family's specific circumstances. After the pilot trip, process the experience with your children in age-appropriate ways. Ask what they liked and did not like about the places you visited. Ask whether they can imagine living there and what excites or worries them about the possibility. Listen to their questions and answer honestly, acknowledging uncertainty where it exists rather than pretending that everything will be fine. Children who are given space to express their concerns and who feel heard in the decision-making process are better prepared for Aliyah than children whose worries are dismissed or ignored. The pilot trip is not just reconnaissance for your family's decision, but the beginning of your children's own journey toward understanding what Aliyah will mean for their lives.